Nice
Okay.
recording progress. Okay, nice. So nice to meet you, Albert.
Nice to meet you too.
Finally, we have been friends for some time.
Yep.
Yes.
It's been what, 2.5 years now since we met, and yeah, 2.5 years, and got to see Quarantine, 1984, which you won 3 Film Geek Awards, and now we're here to talk about your first English language film, The Curse of Modigliani, and that must have been quite exciting for you to to do your first English language film.
Yes, it was very exciting, and I was so happy to find the cast. And in Finland, so many people wanted to act in this movie, and it was not a problem that it was in English. Actually, more people wanted to act in English, So yes, and in Finland, people usually know English very well since childhood. It's just very normal for people to watch movies in original language and to study it in school and so on.
That's awesome. So, I mean, after two Russian language films with Quarantine and then 1984, which I still to the believe like you did everything on these films like to this day. And I mean, you're seriously you're amazing when it comes to filmmaking because you do it all, no, barely any help, and you show that one person can do it all. And for this to do your English language film debut is just it's great to see that. And the story's quite interesting too about Modigliani because I had to actually do my research on him as I heard about the project. So I'm thinking, who was this guy? And was reading about him, and I'm going, wow. And then watching the movie, I'm like, I totally get why he became this guy. Slowly starts to descend into becoming a modern version of him.
Yes, exactly. And I was also interested in the story of the real Amadeo, and I also watched the two movies with the French one made in the 1950s and one made in the 90s. So I like these movies, but I also had my own ideas. At first I thought about making about separate timelines for this artist, but then I became so interested in Max's story, so it shifted the focus.
So as always, you got to play the female lead in this film, and I think this is one of the best things you've done yet. Because when we see Quarantine and 1984, it's like you're there, but at the same time, it's like how much of an impact do you make in the story? Which, no offense, it wasn't much, but you still brought some presence to it. But this one, it really, I think you brought out one of your best roles here because you had a lot more screen time and you had this very complex relationship with Max. So my next question is, what was it like working with the lead actor Edward on this?
Thank you very much. But because I was never really so, how should I say, interested in acting before, but then when I started, directing, that's when I realized that I wanted to also to act. So that's why at first I was a bit shy about appearing on camera and so on. So it was like baby steps, step by step. So finally, I felt more confident to play a bigger role, because it took some time. Because in my first two movies, I just wanted to let the other guys, shine, because they were all professional actors and so on.
Yeah,
And with Edward, it was fantastic to work with him because I felt that like he didn't really have a chance before to have a big role like that. But when I met him in London and I was auditioning different actors, and I immediately saw something special in him. And
hmm
everyone was required to send a self-tape, and he delivered a fantastic one, fantastic self-tape, it almost made me cry, like it was so emotional and just perfect. And I immediately saw that's Max. So it was great to work with him. Of course, he was also a bit nervous because it was his first big role and so on. And we shot a lot of scenes, because he came from London to Helsinki. So we did it in about 10 days, the principal photography, which was very fast. We had to shoot a lot of scenes. But it actually turned out very well, and he delivered his most emotional scenes later in the shooting process. So he actually developed a lot as an actor, I feel.
yeah,
Yeah, he's because it also takes some experience to to really bring a role uh, to real life, you know.
Yeah, what I also liked was you just mentioned it that you shot this film in your hometown of Helsinki, and some of the shots in this movie are so beautifully done. It's like we're getting not to just know the characters, but for those who are unfamiliar with Helsinki, we get to see how amazing it looks. And what inspired you to shoot the film and set the film there rather than, when you did your first two films? Granted, 1984 was the future, but it supposed to be, I guess it was supposed to be Russia in a way, but in quarantine was also in Russia. What inspired you to shoot this film in your hometown?
So, of course, it's so much easier to shoot here in Helsinki, but before I only traveled to Russia to shoot my movies, so I never really lived there. But I did know how many fantastic actors are in Moscow, so that was what made me want to do my movies in Moscow. That was the reason, because it was, of course, difficult to travel there and to organize everything, but I knew that they had the best acting schools, the best actors there. So that was the reason why I did those movies. But now I don't feel comfortable traveling there anymore, and
Yeah.
I live in Helsinki. It's my home, so of course I understood that I want to make a movie here. Why not? And I got to know a lot of great actors here, so. And I wanted to show Helsinki more because I think it's a great city that should get some more recognition and people should find out more about it, you know.
Yeah, I totally agree. 'Cause I know a little bit about Helsinki and Finland because I gotta admit I like a couple Finnish movies I like. Especially I just recently actually talked to a Finnish producer a few years back. Um, trying to think what his name was. Oh, Mika Norvanto. He had done the first Finnish superhero film called Rendell. So I started to watch the Rendell movies and getting an understanding of how that worked out. And he showed like the various small cities of Finland, and it was like if it was so fascinating all the resources that he used for it in these small little towns over there. But I never got to see Helsinki how it was meant to, see. But you, I think, perfectly did it with your cinematography, and that's one other thing. You are amazing behind the cameras, doing it all, hands down. You just work so hard.
Thank you, Albert. And I am a huge movie geek, like you. So that's why I really want to do a lot of different things, because I don't just want to be like ordering people around so on. I want to get into the heart of the cinema, you know.
Yeah, I mean, and especially in for a female filmmaker, it's rarely ever someone doing it all by themselves and proving themselves. Like we have some we have some amazing female filmmakers nowadays, but we rarely get to see the ones who do everything. You lensed it, you edited it, you produced it, you wrote it, you directed it, you did the music, you even did the visual effects for 1984, and that's just mind blowing. Like I think you can be an inspiration to future generations, in my opinion.
Thank you, Albert. Thank you. This means a lot to me. And I also wanted to say that I also don't know so many women filmmakers who do so many things, but I do know one, and her name is Anna Eriksson. She's
Mhm.
a good friend, and she's also an inspiration to me too.
Yeah, and I know one too who she only did one film, but she did such a great job on it. It's an American filmmaker named Ali Lucas, and she did one film. It was a comedy that was a love letter to her idol, John Hughes. The movie's called Catherine Upside Down, and she did it all. She did have a crew, but then when they came to reshoot, she pretty much did everything else herself. And so I felt like that could have inspired a lot of future generation filmmakers as well. And the best thing is this movie is almost completely improvised rather than sticking to a script, but it's a really funny movie.
That's great, but with improvisation, it requires a different kind of talent because with my actors, from my experience, people want to have their lines,
Yeah.
and they can get very shy if you say to them, "Oh, just improvise something." They can get a kind of stage fright. So I kind of avoid that. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah, I get that. I get it. But I also know that sometimes when they have a certain line and it might not come out right when they're doing it. So like, can I say this instead or this instead? And they try that
Yes,
out and it ends up becoming better than what was in the script. So I think that, that helps as well.
yes, I love that because it's very natural that some lines will not sound so good in real life and with different actors and so on. So this I definitely allow.
That's amazing. So you shot this film in 10 days, is that what you said?
The principal photography, because the some scenes with the doctor, with the lawyer, and some dancing scenes, and I think, mm, well, with the lawyer, yeah, with the lawyer, the doctor, yeah, with the brother, with Julia's brother, yes, it was shot a bit later, but the main photography was done in 10 days. Yes.
Wow, that's crazy. That's pretty fast, but I get it. I mean, I could see why, you just want, I think in the way you want to get out there, but at the same time, you want to make it perfect. And my next question is, did you face any challenges shooting the film? Like, were there anything you found out you had to change or
Yes, of course, it was a challenge to shoot everything in 10 days, but on the other hand, I also did not want to have too much material, otherwise you can get kind of lost in it. I already had so much material because I had to cut it down from 3 hour cut then to the 1 hour 40 minutes cut. So already I had a lot of material, but if I would have shot it even longer, I would get lost in the footage,
yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
but, but yes, it was a challenge to shoot because we were shooting several scenes in every day, several scenes. So of course it was not so easy, but still we did it, and. So yes, yes, that was the challenge, and of course, as an independent director without real funding or anything like that, it's also not so easy. But we did these things that I had limited means of where to shoot. So I decided to shoot Max's atelier in my own apartment and Leo's apartment in Elena's apartment, who is the painter and also my mother. So we kind of got around these challenges this way.
Well, you gotta go this way if you're an independent filmmaker. There'll be times where you have producers who are gonna overlook what you're doing and that they're gonna tell you how to do the film. But you are one of the most amazing filmmakers out there because you produce your own films and you don't have to worry about getting pressure to do it. You can take your time doing the film because you just want to make it right. And thankfully, a lot of indie producers nowadays are doing the same thing. They don't over it's not like A-list where you have to follow a certain brand of how things are done. They give the directors free reign and then they'll see the end result and they're like, "Oh, well, yeah, this came out really good and yeah, we'll release it and whatnot."
I agree completely, and I know that I have so many friends who work on very big budget Hollywood productions, and they also complain to me how difficult it is, how when they have producers telling them what to do and what to change. So I understand that it's not a perfect world out there, and I want to do my own thing. That's what I prefer, and I have a lot of ideas that I want to realize. And so yes, I prefer working independently. And filmmakers like Jean-Luc Godard are a huge influence on me, and Aki Kaurismäki, for example. So I don't want to fit into any kind of big studio system. I just want to make my own films. Yes.
Yeah, I would definitely stick to it. Besides, I actually talked to a kind of a A-list actor years ago, and he told me he prefers to do indie films because he said they brought a lot more creativity and originality to films nowadays. Like, because it's true, a lot of the A-list films today, they're just the same. They're either reboots, they're remakes, reboots, just the same tired thing. But nowadays indie films is more are becoming more creative. That's why I champion them more than A-list films because they're just more original and creative. Like your films, they're even though 1984 is an adaptation, you brought your own little spin
Yes,
to that
exactly.
world. You brought your own little spin to that world, and of course, you ended up winning Best Director, Best Editing, and Best Overall Film, and you definitely earned it with that, with all the hard work you did.
Thank you, Albert. And it's people like you that make it, worth it. So I know that there are people who enjoy my movies and support me, and it matters a lot to me.
So let's talk about your music next, because you just came out with your first album, and what inspired you to finally start doing that?
So before I was very shy about singing, so on. I never liked to sing. But in Finland we have a great karaoke culture, so I started going to karaoke clubs and started having fun. And then when I was making my movie and I was editing it, it took me a long time to edit. And I decided I had to take a short break, and it was 2 months long that I did this vocal album, and it was very fast because I wrote the lyrics and did the instruments and singing and so on in 2 months. It was 10 tracks, both in English and Russian, and it was a very weird album, and but it was very fun to do. I wanted to experiment with my voice also. I did even rap or just rock screaming and different kind of ways of doing the vocals. So it was fun.
Yeah, I will say this. I mean, there's actually an audience for that type of music because I got a coworker and he just says he listens to just noise, like music, albums that are just different noise, like just all he calls it noise music, and it's like there I was like, okay, and I think for like, there's got to be an audience for your music. I definitely enjoyed your album. I listened to it. I have it on my Amazon playlist, and I was listening to it, and I was like, once in a while, I'll go ahead and just listen to it, just out of the blue, like. And I gotta say, I love the song "Happy Meals," hand down. That is such a fun song.
That's great. Thank you, Albert. So yeah, of course, I enjoy kind of more unusual music. Like I like Sonic Youth, for example. Some of their songs are quite weird, and I like that. I like post-punk music. I like kind of some stranger type of music. So I'm also developing a second vocal album, and we'll see how it goes. For now, I don't know the direction. We'll see what
Well,
happens.
well, I do. I always I am like eclectic when it comes to music. I will listen to anything. I will give anything a shot. And as of last few years, I've been listening to a lot of symphonic metal, like from like Nightwish, a Finnish band, Epica, Amaranth. I like those like these European. And I even just started listening to bands from like I didn't even know there was a band in Bulgaria called Metal Wings. They do like when they do the symphonic music with the violins and all that. I was like, I'm like, this is pretty cool. Like I started getting into those lately. Like, but I listen to old school stuff too. Like I grew up in the 80s, so always listen to 80s music and disco, and I even like the older stuff, like not just the classicals, but like the swings of the 40 swing music of the 30s and 40s, the 50s doo-wop. I will listen to anything. And I think it's just in my nature because my dad was a musician too. Like he used to play in a salsa band when he was, as a bass player, and sadly, he passed away in 2024. But he went out with a bang. He just played till he just couldn't anymore. And so I think that's where all my music taste comes from. I think it's from him.
That's great, actually. And I started out as a classical pianist, and since I was 5, I was playing classical piano all the time. And then I drifted to composing as a teenager and so on. So I definitely have that background, but I ended up also enjoying so much of the 1980s music, so it's also something I continue to return to when I want to get some inspiration to relax or whatever, just so many great bands and singers from Britain especially, you know. Uh, so I enjoy a lot of different kind of music. So yeah, yeah, because so some people only stick to small amount of.
Yeah.
I just I can listen to anything practically, but maybe just few exceptions. I
Yeah, me too. Me too. Like I can listen to the 80s like rap because it wasn't, but today's rap I can't really listen to. It's too much for that stuff is just too much for me. It's practically the same thing over and over again, and the same message. Where in the 80s raps, some of them did have messages, so it's like it's so much easier to listen to, and it was much more fun. But it's all today's rap and hip hop is all just like the same thing. And I know it's the marketing thing that's why people listen to it because of the marketing. But for me, it's like I'm more of a instrumentalist type. And one of my favorite, because you mentioned you started in classical music, one of my favorites is Japanese Yoshiki. He started out as a classical pianist. He ended up becoming the founder and leader of a heavy metal band called X Japan. And now he switches between like he even does like he even creates his own little classical versions of like popular songs. I think I heard him on do Let It Go from Frozen. He did like a symphony version of it, and it's just mind blowing what he accomplished in his like he's like 40 plus years now. What he did. So if I have a recommendation for you, I would listen to Yoshiki because he's amazing. He's an amazing
I need to
musician.
check him out. I need to
Yeah,
check him.
yeah,
Yeah.
he's an amazing musician.
I was thinking about rap, and I grew up. I was kind of obsessed with Britney Spears and Eminem and Madonna, Kylie Minogue. I'm thinking about that, and yeah. But nowadays, I don't really listen to any new rap. So for me, kind of Eminem was, I think, the last great rapper.
Yeah, I agree. I agree on that. I still listen to them, but yeah, I grew up with, like I said, I grew up in the '80s, and I knew about all the British bands there, like the British groups, like ABC, Tears for Fears of America, no, Tears for Fears, Culture Club. I grew up listening to those, and I still do. Like almost every day, I got to listen to like at least something from where I grew up because
Yes, I love them.
yeah, because we have a fifth, almost like just over 10-year time gap between between us. So it's like because I just turned 47, so it's just
And I'm turning 34 soon.
so I get well not it's not really so much as generations. We're still we still practically grew up in the same good eras of music in my opinion.
Yes, yes, but I'm kind of obsessed, I think, more with your 1980s era, actually. Yeah, yeah, that's funny, Because as a child, I didn't listen so much to 1980s music, but as a teenager, as I started to listen, I just continued to listen more and more to this era.
Yeah, I get that.
And of course, what also affects that MTV was so great in this decade. That was when it appeared, and
Mhm.
so many great music videos were made back then, and so on.
Yeah, I can't believe they ended that just this past like right around New Year's they officially ended MTV with the music videos and I'm like, oh, my childhood just died.
Yes,
My
yes,
childhood died. My childhood just died with that. I'm like, oh, come on.
that's
Yeah.
my thoughts exactly.
But I will say, as of late, I've been a show I used those because movie wise, I grew up watching. I watched B movies mostly. I mean, still watched A-list movies, but as a kid, I watched what we call B movies. But now, of course, you can put that under indie cinema now. But there was a show I used to watch called Up All Night, and they used to show just the B movies on this cable network. Well, a couple months ago, the original host brought it back on YouTube for its one channel, and I just watched the new episode last night, and I just said, "Well, MTV died. My MTV's gone. My childhood died, and now watching this, my childhood is coming back to me slowly, and I'm really excited to start watching these B movies again on this show that I grew up watching as a kid and a teenager, and I'm just like, I'm just glad I get to enjoy that again at least because I still like to sometimes relive my childhood. I know it sounds weird, but you know.
No, it's not weird. It's not weird. I understand completely.
So what were your well, I would love to know this. What were some of your favorite movies growing up?
Gone with the Wind, I think so. Because it was the movie with, when I was very small, I would fall asleep to it, but I would watch it all the time and that would just relax me. I guess.
I remember we did that when I was in I think it was I was in middle no was it middle school or high school I can't remember what year it was but we all had to sit in the auditorium and watch Gone with the Wind and everyone and people started breaking and some of my classmates brought their pillows because they had a feeling they knew how long it was and they were like we're gonna fall asleep to this and it was so funny to see that and I was like yeah I like Gone with the Wind I do like a lot of the older movies too and I really used to not like them which is funny but when I went to college and I majored in film, I decided to major in film studies in my third year. I took a class on the Hollywood in the 30s and 40s because I really wanted to understand what was the big deal about these films at the time. And now I fell in love with that era too in terms of movies. They came out with some of the best movies and they do not make them like that anymore.
Yes, and Gone with the Wind, for example, I also rewatched it later on in a cinema, and it was great to actually see all this detail. It was just amazing. So, of course, there are some movies that I can continue to rewatch, and often take the chance if I can find a nice screening.
Yeah.
So of course I was also obsessed with Disney movies, animated films and so on, and it was great for me to get to know John Muskos because
Mhm.
he directed Little Mermaid and Aladdin, and I love these movies as a kid.
I also grew up like I grew up with my dad got me into kung fu movies back in the day. So and it's funny because people think it's just a bunch of fighting, but I always will remember this quote that Jason Statham said about one of his movies, and he goes, "No, when you're watching a fight scene, it's a dance. It is a dance. It's choreography. You got to get the moves right. You got to get the rhythm going." And watching these old kung fu movies, you could kind of see sometimes it looks like they're just flailing their arms and legs, but you got these other ones that are just so the techniques look so crisp and it looks like they're actually dancing and it's just amazing like Jackie Chan's movies his even his older stuff he shows like it looks like he's literally dancing on the screen rather than just fighting and I grew up with that and then I grew up with the you know comedies that don't get enough love and the B movies and stuff like that. And my parents used to always go to the video store every week and rent, like, just bring home a bunch of tapes for the weekend to watch. And I didn't get into horror until I was well, I watched my first full horror film at 6, took a little break from it because my parents would rent like the craziest movies. And I was like, I cannot watch this. No. But then in my teen years, my love for horror grew. So it's like, and still is to this day. And you know, but now it's like, yeah, I think now it's like I can tolerate the stuff that I couldn't tolerate back as a kid. But now it's like now I can I can take some of it. But um, but yeah, it's usually like action horror or like the really cheesy comedies that for me, and I do love gangster films too. Like The Godfather I think is one of the best ones ever made, hands down.
Yes, I also like The Godfather, and I also like um Martin Scorsese's movies and Taxi Driver. I watched it many times. I think this is one of my favorite movies. So yes, and else about George Lucas, I only watched Star Wars later when I was maybe 19 years old. So it was nice, but which movie affected me most, I think, was THX 1138. So I really liked this movie. That was why I also wanted to make 1984.
Oh
Um,
wow.
yeah. So this one, I think I watched as a teenager. Uh, actually, am more obsessed with it than with Star Wars. So, I watched it many times and I thought that I want to make a movie like that.
And you did. And
Yeah, yeah.
was that also inspired you to try the visual effects aspect of things? Because I know you did all the visual effects of 1984.
Yes, you know what's funny with George Lucas? I know that he continued to refine the visual effects, and now I'm also refining them. I'm also going to upload the um, special version, which will have even better effects.
I actually showed your 1984 trailer at my school last semester when we were doing an indie cinema presentation, and I told everyone how one person did all this. They did the visual effects, and their mouths dropped to the floor, and they were like so impressed with what. And some people even ask me, "Where can we see this movie?" I'm like, "You can rent it on Amazon right now." I tell them, "Rent the movie." Like, trust me, you're gonna enjoy this movie. I tell them that, like, you're really gonna like this one.
Thank you, thank you. That's great, actually. Yeah, that's very nice to hear.
Yeah, I mean, just the fact you did that, and that the fact that that movie inspired you to do it. I mean, it's just what inspired you to do. What was the inspiration behind Quarantine, your first film?
Well, for example, I like films by Andrei Tarkovsky and by Konstantin Lopushansky because they did some very good art house science fiction films. So, for example, by Lopushansky, I like the film Dead Man's Letters. It was very interesting movie, and I'm also friends with him. I'm very lucky to be friends with
Wow.
him. He was also working with Andrei Tarkovsky actually a long time ago, so. It's a great connection. And of course, I very much love Andrei Tarkovsky and his films. I think my favorite film by him is, it's difficult choice, of course, but I think Stalker is a great movie. Yeah, I think these directors affected me the most. So that I wanted to make that movie. And I wrote the screenplay very fast for quarantine because I was very inspired. For me, it was like writing poetry. So it was like that. It was this kind of process.
So how long? So you mentioned how that you wrote Quarantine fast. How long did it take for you to write the screenplays for 1984 and Curse of Modigliani?
Well, with 1984, of course, it was based on the two novels,
Yeah.
1984, and based also on We by Evgeny Zametin.
Hmm.
Of course, it was a different kind of process. I don't even remember so much how many days it took. Uh, since it was adapting, a lot of things were just, like in the books. A lot of the scenes. Some scenes were completely new, of course. But yeah. Um, I think with Quarantine, it was the fastest screenplay I wrote. I think so. Yes. Yes. Because it was specifically like writing poetry.
Yeah. Well, that's amazing. I mean, that's so. Do you have another new film in the works that you're planning? And is it like what's the genre? What are we gonna do? Like what's this? If so, what's this like? What's gonna be the genre on this one?
Well, I also want to make a drama, black comedy, but I don't want to say anything because if I will say something, then it will not realize. It's often like that. You talk too much about something, and it just does not happen. But with my movies, it was always like that. I did not tell anyone anything, and everything happened perfectly.
Well, I mean, at least you said you want to write a dark comedy and or a drama, so another drama. So yeah, I could, you never know because sometimes a lot of ideas will pop in your head probably, and you just got to think about which one you want to focus on first. And
Actually, I have several screenplays written, and one screenplay which I want to do is kind of a musical. Uh, so,
which
uh,
would, yeah, which would fit you perfectly
yeah,
because
yeah,
of
yeah.
your background in music.
I want to continue dancing, singing, and making music and so on. So I hope to do something like that. And yes.
Yeah, I mean, musicals are films about music is like, they're kind of fun, but I mean, of course, we had High School Musical in the 2000s, but before that, we had Grease, and even the 1930s, we had Busby Berkeley, who's one of my favorite filmmakers, because the way he shoots his dance sequences, the stuff he did in his movies with when they start dancing, it's just first time I saw that, I was in that class I took. We watched one of his movies, and he did this elaborate type of choreography and the way he shot the scene himself and the overhead shots. I was just like, why do they not make anything like this anymore? This is crazy. And then I later found out in the late 80s, Jackie Chan had a musical number in one of his movies and he shot it. I think he got inspired because I know he always says he got inspired by Charlie Chaplin and Harold Lloyd with his taste for comedy. But this one sequence, it was Busby. I was like, it was Busby Berkeley. Like it was inspired by Busby Berkeley. It had to have been. And I showed this in one of my film classes, and they were just like, "Oh my God!" And it turned out the movie was an homage to 1930 cinema. Like it was his spin on it, but he did Lady for he remade Pocketful of Miracles and Lady for a Day with this one movie, but he added this little spin to it. But this one sequence was the kicker for me because it had that 1930s musical style, and I was just like, "Whoa!" I'm like, I never knew like someone's gonna say, "Oh, Jackie Chan's always gonna do this and this and this," and I go, "No, this is the movie you need to see because this is not anything he's ever done before." So I think it's called The Miracles. I think that's what it's called. But it's his homage to 1930s cinema. It's just amazing.
I need to check it out actually, but I'm also inspired by Bob Fosse, so I'm kind of interested in something like his movies. And I don't want to make like a full-on musical, but maybe with some musical numbers. I think it's more realistic for me.
Yeah,
So
I've seen films do that. I think I think it was a horror there was a horror movie that came out here a few years ago called Anna and the Apocalypse, and it's supposed to be like a zombie horror film, but they just inserted musical numbers in there. So it's just like out of nowhere. And I
why
was,
not?
so I was like, wow. It was like it's a horror musical comedy. I was like, this is fun. And we need more films like this because I know how A-list Hollywood would never do anything like this. They'd be like, oh, they would think it's a stupid approach, I think. And because, like I said, they still follow that old code. But yeah, like you, I grew up with Disney movies too. Not just the animated ones. The original live action films were so much more fun than the ones today because all they're doing is they're just remaking their animated films. And
Yes, yes, that's pointless.
exactly, but back in the old day, you had stuff like the Shaggy Dog, the Apple Dumpling Gang. One of my favorites is Midnight Madness, which is about all night scavenger hunt in the city, and like they don't make these films. I think the last original film they did was Ice Princess. I think that was one of the last films they like original live action films they did. But now it's like, why are you remaking your animated films? Don't do that. Just do something original again. You're kind of killing the you're kind of killing the vibe here with fans. I mean, it's just crazy.
Yeah, yeah, I know. And also people who worked at Disney also criticizing this. Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just glad you're doing your own thing. You don't have to conform to that. And and it's funny because also nowadays and over here, a lot of the former A-list actors who starred in these A-list movies a long time ago are now doing indie films. And it's for various reasons. But one of my favorite actors is Danny Trejo, who goes, I don't care what movie I'm doing. I can do an A-list movie. I will do an indie film. I just like to work. That's the only reason why. It's just work to me. It's just a job. I just like to do it. It's just something I love to do.
Eric Roberts too.
Yep, Eric Roberts.
Yeah,
Before he passed away, Michael Madsen. He did a lot of indie stuff. Um, and a lot of these old guard are doing these little films now, and it's just because I think they just like to do it. So a lot of them just want to keep working. Sure, they might not be as big as they are now, but I think they just like to do the work.
of course. And I think that's the worst thing for an actor is to stop working if they kind of become too picky or something. So it's not a good idea. As an actor, I think you should always be working all the time. No.
Yeah, and then there's some who just say, I've done my thing. I'm ready to. I'm just going to retire. And I mean, Michael Douglas, he essentially retired. Because he had said that he goes, I've done everything. I did everything I wanted to do. I'm happy now where I am. Just last week I talked with a guy who worked on a movie called American Samurai, and the star of that movie, he did a few more films in the '90s, and he said, you know what? I'm good. I got everything I wanted to get done. I accomplished what I did. I made my I did what I did, and now he's happily retired now and he's focusing on music now too. I heard he's a country singer in Texas. But he was a big like a big low budget action star in the '90s, and he just said, I'm good. I accomplished what I wanted to, and I'm ready to hang it up. And I respect that. I totally, I know a lot of people would be like, "Oh, why don't they make any more movies?" And I'm like, if they want to retire, let them retire. Don't, just let them enjoy their lives. They're people too.
Of course, and for some people it's more like a job, and for some it's their life, it's the only thing they want to do. So everyone has their own mentality about.
Yeah, I totally agree on that. And this is why I love movies as a whole, you know. And but I really love the indie films and global films now because they're more creativity and originality, and they don't conform to the rules, or they don't have to conform to the rules. They can do their own thing, but yeah, yeah, I mean, you're like I said, you're going to be an inspir I think you're going to be an inspiration to many filmmakers down the road. Like whoever wants to get into film, they should start checking out your stuff because you do everything. And I think you can be an inspiration, or if not already, you can definitely you can inspire a lot of filmmakers to do your thing because you do your thing.
Yes, of course, and I want to also let other filmmakers know that you can do it. It's everything is possible, and you just have to set your mind to it. And yeah, today, I think today we have more possibilities actually regarding filmmaking. Cameras are cheaper. We have technology. We can edit films at home with our own computers. And I think that people just sometimes afraid to actually go out and do something like that. And I think that people should not be afraid to make masterpieces.
Yeah, because you never know. You can end up you might be afraid to do it, but once you do it, one, you might enjoy it.
Yes,
Two, you might make the next masterpiece and not realize it.
yes.
You might make the next film that people are talking about, and just and keep your create. And I can also advise keep your if you do become a filmmaker, you know, do your thing, do your own thing, because you get more freedom that way. You know, and don't let producers tell you what to do otherwise, because this is your baby, not theirs. They want to take that from you, but don't let them do it. And I can give you one perfect example. I remember one of my favorite Hong Kong filmmakers, Andrew Lau. He came to the U.S. to make his first film, and he did a film called The Flock with Richard Gere and Claire Danes. And the producers completely messed it up for him. Like they were overseeing it. They took Andrew Lau had a vision. He wanted to make it like a really dark film, and they wouldn't let him do it. Then they just edited it to their liking, and he ended up disowning the film. He's like, I can't do it. But in a twist of irony, because we mentioned Martin Scorsese gave him a chance to do a film called Revenge of the Green Dragons, and you could tell Scorsese gave him that freedom to do. And I think that's what I like about Martin Scorsese. I think he gives filmmakers a chance to do their thing. If he's producing it, he lets them do what they want to do. Because he showed it in this. Because when I watched that movie, it felt like I was watching an Andrew Lau movie. And Andrew Lau's is the guy who did Infernal Affairs. And if you don't know this movie,
Yeah, I know. The Departed, it was a remake.
yeah. So this is the film that so thankfully they actually collaborated on this film, and it was better than The Flock because he didn't have that producer pressure under him.
Yes, and of course, every filmmaker can make their own choice whether they want to just get like a job as a director or if they actually want to make a movie. I just decided I want to make movies. I don't just want some stupid job. I want to make my own movies.
Yeah. And another thing I did not like, and thankfully it's not the case anymore, it's when back in the day when international films would come to America, they would have producers or the distributors cut the film to their liking and to market it. And I really did not like that at all. And perfect case was the Weinsteins when they got these when they brought Jackie Chan's Hong Kong titles to the US, they were cutting them down because Harvey Weinstein can't stand the guy, but anyway, he goes, I'm not gonna quote exactly what he said. He goes, I cut the films because I want this stuff to work, and I'm like, Harvey, you did not make this work. I'm sorry, but you didn't. You kind of destroyed it. You're giving up, like you kind of messed it up by editing them. You need to release the films fully intact because it's not just about action sequences. You got to put the story in there. I like a movie that has a perfect balance of a story and its actions. You can't just do one and not have the other. Like one, like too much action and less story. It's like you're just watching a show reel.
Yeah,
You
that's
know?
pointless.
Yeah, exactly. It's like that's pointless. You got to blend it together. That's what these filmmakers do. They're blending it just right. And thankfully the case is we're now getting more movies that are fully intact, and we're actually over here we just got older films that are getting resurrected on physical media now, not just streaming and in their full forms. And I'm just like so relieved because now these like movies like I probably missed out on as a kid, now I get to watch them and as they intended to be, and I really love that.
Yes, and I also remember the case with the 1950s movie Sampa. It was a Finnish Soviet production. For America, they released some cut down version, which was like featured on Mystery Science Theater. It was they thought it was so funny, but it was funny because it was a butchered version. Like the original movie is very nice. It's a wonderful fairy tale, but why ruin it? What's the point?
Yeah,
So.
exactly.
So yeah, if you want to, you can check it out. Sample. I think it's also available on YouTube.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I like that. I love that fact that you sometimes do recommend me movies to check out, and I end up do watching them because I feel like 'cause I've known you for a couple of years now, and I think you're not just amazing. Or it's not just now like a filmmaker and a blogger. I feel like genuinely you have become a friend, and I'm really grateful for that.
I'm also grateful. Also feel like you're a close friend of mine, and also because I'm not just making my movies, I'm also supporting other filmmakers, and I'm also a member of some film festival juries. So I also have some input regarding new independent cinema. So I can also sometimes recommend some new movies, which. So it's a very nice this interaction we have. You recommend me something, I recommend you. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny because now during the pandemic, I got invited to the Florida Film Festival, but it was virtual. And this is gonna then to this day, I don't know if they ever got a distributor or if they distribute himself, but my second overall World Film Geek Award best film was a film I saw at the film festival. It's called 18 to Party, and it's set in the 80s, and it's about these teenagers. It's all spent in like the whole film is set within a couple hours, but it's a bunch of teenagers who go after school to this little club, and they can't go inside yet until like 8 p.m. because that's when they start letting the under 18 crowd go in for a few hours. So all it is they just sit out there and they just start talking, and all this complicated. It reminded me of Dazed Confused. It was like Dazed Confused basically. And I think I wrote in my review of John Hughes and Richard Linklater had a love child. It would be this movie, and I think he ended up self-distributing the movie because I don't think he actually got a distributor for it because I could not find it anywhere. Usually, when you get a distributor, you could see it on all this. And I think like your films, I think he has it on Amazon. but it was called 18 to Party, and it was really good. And I was like, I don't know why this has not been. I don't see it anywhere except for Amazon. I'm thinking maybe he self-distributed the movie because maybe a distributor didn't want to pick it up, or they just had some trouble. I don't know, but yeah, that's one I would recommend too. It's really good. It's just like a real life movie, and I like those type of things too, where it all takes place in a day, and it's just like it's not. You could tell it's not. The chemistry is natural between these characters, and that's another thing for me. You got to have chemistry between the characters. Like you and Max in this movie, you guys had such a complex relationship, but your chemistry on screen is what drove the film.
Thank you. And it was very important that we had this interesting chemistry, and I think they were very well in the movie that at first everything is nice and so on. Then he gets, more, strange. And
Yeah, and I felt bad for your character because I got mad. I got mad a few times watching it, but I wasn't. I was mad at Max. Like, oh man, how dare he do this to her? I was like there were times I wanted to reach through the screen and let's like just like
exactly, no, but that's what I want the viewer to feel, that they should have, emotions toward the characters, should be sometimes angry or happy about the characters. It should be like an emotional roller coaster,
yeah, and because sometimes I watch these and I talked to other actors and filmmakers and they noticed it too. I'm like sometimes you watch these ensemble casts and those romantic comedies and it just lacks the chemistry. It's like they're just there for the pay. It's like they're just cashing it. They're just checking it in. Like they're just checking in. They're not really involved in their roles, And it's just like that's a big turnoff for me when it comes to that. I was like, if I gotta see a movie, you gotta have that chemistry between you guys for it to work. But and sometimes for that genre it doesn't. But I will say this: I saw in 2020 a horror film called Triggered, and it's a horror film about nine friends who were forced to kill each other. But their opening scene, they're surrounding a campfire, and they felt so natural. The chemistry between the nine of them was so natural. It was like you're actually watching a group of friends reuniting. And I had later found out through one of the actors, was also one of my friends. She's like, we had never worked with each other before this movie, like none of us. And so when we did the table reads and then we had to shoot at nighttime because the whole movie takes place in one night. And she told me the end result of this is to this day, we are all friends. We ended up all becoming best friends after making this movie, and we had never worked with each other at all. And we always keep, and I was like, that's the thing right there. When you don't work with someone but you end up having so much fun working with them and bringing that chemistry on screen. It can lead to something like that, a lifelong friendship, and I really love that.
Yes, I agree completely, and I also want to work with many of my actors again because they were so dedicated to their roles and so on. Because especially when you are doing independent projects, people should be very passionate about the work. So I definitely want to continue working with them.
Yeah, and there's producers out there who love these type of movies so much that they bring the same people over and the same supporting cast, and it's just that chemistry is still there. And sadly, we did lose one of them last year. But one of my favorite producers is a guy named Michael Mahal. Him and his brother do these throwbacks to the old 80s and 90s B movies that I grew up watching. They're releasing them now. And sadly Michael passed away last year. So I gave him the Film Geekdom Award this last year at the World Film Geek Awards because of his accomplishments. And I've heard so many people I've talked to who had worked with him, they said this guy knows what he's doing. He doesn't get in your face. He takes in, he's willing to take input from everyone, and like we needed more producers like him because they said he made such an impact on indie cinema in Hollywood. He's not like these A-list producers. He listens to you. He works with the actors and directors, and he lets them do the free reign, and he just enjoyed it till the very end. And I know that the company is going to be closing up, but I think they have two more films in the works that they're coming out this year. It's going to be the last two. But to hear that, like hear how much of like when you hear producers, you think of the guys who like tell you what to do, the A-list producers. That he was the anti A-list producer, and I am so happy to have gotten to know his like I met him through his brother, and I just feel so blessed that I got to see these guys do this stuff, and it's awesome. And that's what we need more of. We need more producers who are willing to let these directors do what they want to do.
Yes, because I have so many friends who are professional directors and who complain all the time to me about how horrible producers are, you know? So, yeah.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, I talked to a Dutch director years ago, and he was doing in the U.S. He was doing a lot of straight to video sequels. This Dutch director, and I remember I saw an interview with him about he. I think he got to direct a Marvel TV series or a pilot for a Marvel TV series, and he kept saying the producers were looking over his shoulders all the, like every time. But what I liked what he told me is like the reason I'm doing these films here is because the money I get from this, I'm making my own movies in the Netherlands, and he wanted to bring, and he did with two films. He brought the history of the Netherlands to in his on his own terms. So he did a film called Admiral, which is about a Dutch admiral who took on the entire British Navy by himself. Like he was outnumbered, but somehow still managed to beat them. And then he did a like a warrior epic about I think it's set in the ninth century where Christianity was coming to the Netherlands and they were forcing the Frisians out of the area, and this one guy who's supposed to be a prince, something like his dad was killed by the Christians, and he ended up marrying a Viking warrior, and they helped take the land back. I was like, and like this really happened? He goes, yeah, it really happened in the Netherlands back in the day. And I'm thinking, holy cow, like this is amazing. Like, and these are his better films. Like over in the U.S., he's known for these straight to video sequels that they're just using the cash in. But back in his home turf of the Netherlands, he made his best films there. With the history.
Yes, and I wanted to say that we had our premiere on the 23rd. It was very nice. The actor Edward, he came to Helsinki also. It was such a great atmosphere, and so many people came for the screening. So I was just so blessed, you know. It was wonderful. So the hall was almost full, you know. So it was very nice.
Yeah, I'm glad that it got a big. I'm glad that the premiere got a turnout, and I think you mentioned that 1984 is going to be getting a Helsinki premiere.
Yes, I will be screening it on the 5th of February, so I'm looking forward to it, and we will screen a new cut with improved special effects. So I'm kind of like George Lucas, kind of fiddling with the effects, you know?
Oh, so it's gonna be
Yeah,
like
yeah, like
kind of like 1984, the remastered version.
yeah, kind of like that. Yeah, exactly.
Oh wow, I wonder how you're gonna do that because I thought the visual effects were good as they were, but
Yeah,
like you're gonna
I
if you're
but
gonna
I don't want to scare people off. It's not like I'm replacing things. I'm just kind of improving but keeping the same look, you know, just more detailed and so on. So I'm not just replacing. I'm kind of improving, you know.
Yeah, I think I love the fact that you can do them, with a low budget with the doing visual effects because if you look at, you know, I remember I will never forget this. I keep seeing this, but I remember when when the Justice League movie came out and Henry Cavill had finished shooting and he was working on Mission Impossible. He had a mustache
Yeah,
and
I remember they cut it off.
they digitally removed it for $25 million. But the bad thing was when you see the film, you could still see the outline of the mustache a little bit from certain angles. And I saw how bad that was. And I'm like, they spent $25 million only to mess it up because he still looked like you could still see the outline of the. But then you had Takashi Yamazaki, who made a full Godzilla movie and did all the visual effects on a $10 million budget, and that became the biggest Godzilla film of all time, Godzilla minus one. And I don't know if you've seen this yet, but when you see his visual effects and on only a $10 million budget, that looked realistic. Like that looked, I saw it on the big screen and it looked realistic. And I'm thinking he only spent $10 million and we had a $25 million messed up mustache. Hmm. I wonder which one's gonna work out. I wonder which one is gonna be better here. Hmm. And I heard he got a bigger. I heard he's doing a bigger budget now for it because he's doing a new Godzilla. He's working on a new Godzilla movie now as we speak, and he got a little bit of a bigger budget, but the way he can handle visual effects on such a low budget compared to what we had, I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna be going for the little guy in this case.
Yeah, exactly. In the United States, I feel like the budgets are just completely ridiculous when I think about $100 million for a movie. I mean, I don't understand what is that? What is this? You know?
Yeah, exactly. Like, why you spend all this like so much money on just making a movie? It's like, I mean, I remember I saw one of these like shot on videos movies from the 90s, and this one, and I just got the Blu-ray for it, and the guy only spent 5,000. It was like a cheap like a comedy horror movie he did shot on and he shot the movie on videotape because that was a big thing in the 90s. He only spent $5,000. And the
Yes,
movie was good. The movie was good, and then apparently he came out with four versions of it. He cut a director's cut. He did a VHS, a version for VHS. He did a DVD version, and then he did a edited version for cable. And I seen all four on on the Blu-ray. So I'm like, okay. I was like, I'll watch all four. I saw a difference. I'm like, well, he still managed to only make a $5,000 movie look good, no matter how he did it himself, and it's $100 million on a movie. Or remember, Kevin Costner did $300 million on Waterworld, and that went, yeah, it tanked bad. And so, yeah, I was like, why do you spend all so much money on this, and you don't need to, And I know there are indie filmmakers out there nowadays are using Kickstarter, crowdfunding, and it does work. They make the most of what they use on the budgets, and it helped as well. So, I respect that also because
but
sometimes.
you have to have your own network of people who will fund if you put an ad on Kickstarter, because if you don't have this network, it will not work. You have to have these people already, as your friends and acquaintances and so on.
Yeah.
But anyway, who was also an inspiration for me is Robert Rodriguez, who did Mariachi. I mean,
Yep.
that's a great example, I think one of the best examples.
Yeah, what was like $15,000. That's
Yes,
all. That's all
yes,
the
yeah,
budget
yeah,
was. 15
yes,
grand, and
yes.
15 grand. He just like he made this one movie for 15,000, and it's just like wow, and it became a hit. And it became a hit. And I'm like, you know, that's just
Yes, yes,
crazy.
yes. And that's a great example. And I also believe that you shouldn't really use too many takes if you're an independent director. So you just, of course, you shoot from all the angles, but don't waste time. Just shoot from one angle, second, and third, and that's enough.
Yeah, and then what I like about some indie action films is they do what's called a one take. So it's like, but then they have to practice it on
Yeah.
right away because they have to get it right. um I had talked to this one actress of a movie called Army of One, and her husband was the fight choreographer, and she had to, they had to do a one take fight scene in a hallway, and he came up with the choreography 1 hour before they had to shoot the scene. And when she told me that and I saw the fight scene, I'm like, my mouth dropped because I'm like, you only took an hour to do this, and it came out really good. Like it's her beating up these bad guys like in this hallway, and it's just one long take. And she said we only came up with that in an hour, and I'm like 1 hour. Like usually you see something like that, it might take days to come up with the choreography, and then if you mess up one so much as one thing, you got to shoot it over and over and over again. And that's a lot of but to do that, that's one of the biggest accomplishments ever. And I feel, and then sometimes like it doesn't get enough love either. At the same time, like, oh, well, this doesn't get enough, and like, yeah, well, you need to see it and see what they did to accomplish it. It did in such a little amount of time and made the mo and they made it work.
Yes, and also there's this movie, The Russian Ark by Alexander Sakurov. It was shot about 20 years ago. It was just shot in one single take. So it's also an interesting movie to watch if you have time. So by Alexander Sakurov, and just one single take.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, yeah. There's a few movies now that just came out. They did all in one take. I saw Scott Adkins has a trilogy now. I think he just shot the third one. It's called One Shot, and that's why it's called One Shot. It's a whole action movie shot in one take. And then he did one more shot, and now he has one last shot. So that's gonna be coming out. But he shot all they're all one take like action films. And then I remember I saw the first time I ever saw something like that. I saw a movie called Bushwick with Dave Bautista and Brittany Snow, and they shot it in 10-minute long take. They did 10-minute long takes. So you'd see one long take for 10 minutes, and then they would cut. Then they would do the cut and do another 10-minute long take, and then they kept doing it that way until the end of the movie. And I'm like, what? I interviewed the directors. I'm like, what inspired you to do that? They go, we wanted to try something different, like because one of my favorite one take shots is the opening to Orson Welles's. Oh, what was the name of it? It was A Touch of Something, but the entire opening credit sequence is a long take.
Touch of Evil, I think.
That's it. That's it. That's the one. Yes. I knew it was A Touch of Something. I just couldn't remember that last word. But that's the one. We had to watch that in one of my film classes, and when my teacher said he shot this in one long take, we're just like, because back in like early 2000s, that's just like, holy cow, that's insane. And then Johnny Toe's Breaking News, it starts out with one long take that starts out like you just see Hong Kong, the streets of Hong Kong, and then the long take ends with the explosion that becomes the catalyst for the plot. So I'm like, wow. And I think that was like a 7-minute long take. So that was just like insane that they did that. And I love that the filmmakers like to do something. They like to experiment with different techniques because I think it really works. But what I don't like is the filmmakers who do these things and then the A-list companies try to get them. They're like, oh, well, you can't do it your way now. You gotta do it ours. I'm like, no. I'm like, no.
Yes, and I really love theater, and enjoy also working with theater actors because in my first two movies, I think pretty much most of the actors were also working in theater, so they had this preparation, so they can just work very fast, because on theater in theater you don't have second takes. And that's also a great example for me. Also, I know that Kirill Serebrennikov, whose films often at Cannes Festival, he's also an inspiration for me. He also shoots very fast and he does only a few takes. And that's something I also admire about filmmakers and also about Clint Eastwood, that he also avoids doing too many takes.
Yeah.
So, and that's what I believe, that actors do get tired after a while, and their performances just get worse after a while. So the best performances usually are in the first few takes.
Yeah. And one thing that really surprises me is the world of guerrilla filmmaking where they don't get the permits, they'll just shoot and then they have to like disappear. And there was a great movie I saw a few years back called Stampilla, and it was the first US Moldovan co-production. And I interviewed the director, and he said like we had to shoot this movie like on the fly, but the plot was the plot itself imitated what actually happened in the
Yeah,
country.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I saw this movie, and
Yeah,
actually I got to know David Larson. He actually
yeah.
came to
I was
Prague.
like,
We screened his movie actually. So it was,
yeah, like because yeah, he had told me about it. I had heard about it through a PR company, and so I watched it. And when I got to interview him, the thing he told me that was really surprising was he had when he showed the screening in Moldova, a big guy went up to him and said, "I was the cop 6 months ago who was supposed to look for you and arrest you because of what you did. And I am so glad that I do not have to arrest you now. Now that the government has changed, I don't have to arrest you. And I appreciate everything you did for this movie." Like he actually thanked him, despite the fact that if he was still making this movie, he was supposed to arrest him because of the whole government regime. And I was like floored when he told me that. And but yeah, Stamp Pillow was really good. I was surprised, like the whole story, and when I heard about what it was about, I was like, I gotta watch this. And I liked also they told me he told the actors, you guys sure you want to risk your career? Because he's worried that if the the oligarchy was still there, the actors who in the movie were going to lose their careers because some of them were theater actors. I remember he was telling me also, and he got worried that they were going to lose their careers because of, but they were like, no, like we're sticking by you. We need to make a message out of this movie, and they look what happened. Like they left.
Yes, yes, I really enjoyed this movie, and it was interesting to talk to David Larson, who I met in real life. It was also nice. But I will have to go soon.
Me too.
But yes, so it was very nice to talk. It was wonderful, and
Yes.
we'll keep in touch. And yes, I want to make new movies and show more movies to
Yep.
you.
And I will say this, I'm going to let everyone know now, see The Curse of Modigliani, see 1984, see them all on Amazon. See this amazing filmmaker because she did such an amazing job on these three films. Rent, buy them on Amazon Prime right now. It is worth it. And Diana, thank you again so much for taking the time to talk about it and everything else. And definitely going to be keeping in touch.
Thank you, Albert. Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right. Stop recording.